Deputy Speaker.
Order, honourable members, order.
Let me begin by thanking behind the scenes who keep our Parliament running. The ushers, the translators, the chamber staff and those who keep this chamber looking beautiful. Allow me to also extend once again a very big thank you to the National Assembly table team for their hard work, their long hours and their dedication to our institution that we are all so proud to work in. I would also specifically like to thank Mr. Imbulela Taso, Mr. Colin Mshlangu and Mr. Andrew Mbanjwa as their officers for their patience and unfailing willingness to always assist. I'd also like to thank the chief whips of the other opposition parties, notably Mr. Shivambu, Mr. Singh, Dr. Mulder, Mr. Nkwankwa, Professor Kubisa, Mrs. Dudley and Mr. Inchaisa for their good spirit, hard work and the terrific cooperation that the opposition has enjoyed this year. Forgive me if I break with tradition this year. Chief Whip, I want to specifically thank you and to pay tribute to you for your role and your approach, as well as the tremendous courage that you've shown this year. You fight your party corner with vigor, but your simultaneous willingness to listen to other parties, and above all, to be able to disagree without being disagreeable, has heralded a new era of relations in the whippery of our Parliament. Sir, we have opposed each other vehemently on a range of issues, but I want to acknowledge you and your Deputy Chief Whip, Honourable Dlakude, as worthy opponents, and thank you both for your efforts this year. Nobody can deny that 2016 has been an extremely challenging year for South Africa and a particularly difficult year for our Parliament. We have faced economic uncertainty with the spectre of ratings downgrades that have hung over our head for most of this year. We've also seen unprecedented violence break out in our institutions of higher learning, where libraries have been burnt, vicious assaults taken place, damage to public property, and an academic year that has been disrupted. Our schools in places like Vuwani were also not spared. We've been through a local government election this year that has broken the logjam in South African politics, leading to more fluidity and greater contestation in our politics. We've also sadly seen more and more of our countrymen and women join the unemployment lines as our economic growth has faltered and our economy has stumbled. There will sadly be very little Christmas cheer for too many families who do not have the dignity of work. But perhaps 2016 will be remembered more for the heightening of racial incidents in our country. We opened the year with the reprehensible and racist comments of Penny Arrow on Facebook. Throughout the year, we have witnessed racist incidents and racial intolerance, lurching from calls for the killing of people on university campuses, to the stomach-churning coffin incident, to talk of genocide and eradication. There is a daily barrage of racial intolerance, prejudice and incitement on violence on our social media platforms. It is right that we condemn these acts. We must condemn them because they have no place in our democracy. What has been hard to witness, though, is how the utterance of any one of these single repugnant individuals is thereafter used to somehow justify the comments of the other. Like the vile racist utterance of one somehow provides acceptable camouflage for the other, all the while spiraling further and further into the depths of hurtful disgrace and dishonor. These incidents only prove what we already know. South Africa today remains a deeply divided and unequal society, still struggling with deep scars and unhealed wounds from our painful past and policies that systematically divided our nation for far too long. The challenge for all of us, no matter our party, our color or our creed, is surely to work harder to eradicate racism and racial prejudice in our organizations and institutions, and to bind these wounds caused by years of pain and prejudice. It is very easy to feel hard done by, bitter, angry, and excluded in South Africa today, no matter your race. And you will probably be correct for different reasons. But the burden and challenge for each of us and in our communities, no matter where we are, must be to rise above this and to work harder to actually be the change we want to see. Because South Africa, we can carry on down this of deepening division and polarization, retreating further into our lagers of race, language, ethnicity, and culture. We can pit black against white, Muslim against Jew, Afrikaner against English, Xhosa against Zulu. But history has witnessed the world over the terrible destination of this path of division and hate. And as we lift our eyes to the further horizons of world politics, we have seen firsthand the re-emergence of ugly, narrow politics of hate and fear. Politicians who cynically play up to the very worst of their supporters' fears of immigration, of marginalization, and of insular exclusion. They are defying expectations, triumphing in elections, and winning referendums. Our job as leaders here in South Africa must surely be to strike out on a different path. We must, as leaders, reject the exclusionary politics of fear and hate, and instead preach and practice the inclusionary politics of hope and reconciliation to our supporters. We must at all times appeal to the best of our people, not pander to the worst of them. The most revered and remembered leaders of the modern age are not those leaders who play to the base fears of their supporters, but instead those who challenge their supporters to imagine a different world, one beyond the narrow confines of their own fear, self-interest, and prejudice. Our daily mission as leaders in this country must be to actively seek out wrong and do our very best to right it, to work tirelessly every day to bridge the deep inequalities that still exist and to alleviate the suffering of too many of our people, and to tear down relentlessly the barriers that separate us. We must each of us play our part in building a better South Africa. But we can never achieve this if we mobilize and incite our supporters against each other with inflammatory language, hatred, and prejudice. We need to carry with us each day, etched upon our hearts, the words of our nation's founding father, Nelson Mandela, who taught us so many lessons about reconciliation, tolerance, and the rejection of violence. And he said, I quote, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, then they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite," unquote. Nobody can predict for sure what 27 will face and the challenge that we will face. Our country has been through very difficult times before, and we will go through difficult times again. But I know one thing for sure, and that's that the only time we've ever been able to stand up against those challenges and beat them is when we've stood together as a nation. We truly are stronger and better together. And that is what is even more encouraging, is that the majority of South Africans want to work together regardless of race. And a recent Institute of Race Relations report has shown that far from being hostile towards one another, most South Africans, black and white, occupy a pragmatic middle ground on race relations. The overwhelming majority of both groups believe they need to be together for progress to be made. And that brings me back to the role of this Parliament, which is so uniquely positioned to reflect the kind of country we actually want to be. It is a real microcosm of our country, representing every conceivable permutation of the rich tapestry that is South Africa. On these benches sitting alongside each other are white and black, Muslim and Jew, communist and Democrat, liberal and conservative. So different from each other with different experiences, ideas, and opinions. Yet the thing that binds us all together is the fact that each of us live in the special country on the southernmost tip of the continent, and we all serve her together. This Parliament should always set the tone and lead for our nation to follow, never forgetting its unique ability and responsibility to demonstrate and promote reconciliation, heal the divisions of the past, and drive our country to greatness. A time is coming in our politics where those of us who truly love South Africa and its constitution will be called upon to work much more closely together than ever before. The seeds of this cooperation have already been sowed. 2017 will be no less intense politically And we must guard against the language and conduct in this House that reverses the much more important project that we all know we are engaged in. May I, in the season of peace and goodwill, take this opportunity to wish all of you and your parties and your loved ones well over the festive season. We look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you.